The conference room on the 47th floor smelled like stale coffee and broken promises. I sat across from Marcus Caldwell, CEO of Pinnacle Tech Solutions, watching him slide a single sheet of paper across the mahogany table. His gold Rolex caught the afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Chicago's financial district. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. Your severance agreement, Mary, he said, not bothering to look up from his phone where he was scrolling through what looked like luxury car listings. Pretty generous, considering. I didn't touch the paper. After 6 years of building this company's entire cybersecurity division from nothing, turning a failing startup into a $50 million operation, watching Marcus take credit for every breakthrough, every client win, every innovation that came. From my sleepless nights and sacrificed weekends, I knew this moment would eventually come. The signs had been there for months. Marcus had started introducing himself as the visionary behind Pinnacle's revolutionary security protocols at industry conferences. He'd been scheduling mysterious meetings with patent attorneys. Last week, I'd caught him rehearsing a presentation about his quantum encryption breakthrough to his reflection in his office window. Considering what? I asked, keeping my voice level. Marcus finally looked up, his smile sharp enough to cut glass. Considering you've been conducting unauthorized research on company time. The quantum encryption project? That wasn't in your job description, Mary. That was company resources used for personal pet projects. The quantum encryption project. 3 years of my life poured into revolutionary technology that could make current cybersecurity methods obsolete. Technology I developed during my own time, using my own $15,000 worth of equipment, in my converted garage at home in Naperville. The only company resources I'd used were late-night internet searches and some basic software trials that anyone could download for free. That project was developed independently, I said carefully, my hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. On company laptops. During company hours. With company electricity. Marcus leaned back in his leather chair that probably cost more than most people's cars. Our legal team disagrees with your assessment. We have documentation. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Behind Marcus, his executive assistant Janet Rodriguez hovered near the door, clutching a tablet and avoiding eye contact. Janet had been there for every late-night session when I'd worked past midnight. She'd seen me hunched over my personal laptop in my garage, had even brought me coffee and takeout when she'd stopped by to drop off urgent contracts that couldn't wait until morning, but she'd also witnessed every meeting, every email, every conversation. If Marcus had documentation, Janet would have been the one forced to compile it. The intellectual property clause in your contract is very clear, Marcus continued, pulling out a highlighted copy of my employment agreement. Anything developed while employed here, using any company resources whatsoever, belongs to Pinnacle Tech Solutions. Period. He paused, savoring the moment like fine wine. But here's what I'm prepared to do: you sign this severance agreement with the standard non-compete clause. Walk away quietly with 6 months' salary, and I'll let you take your little encryption toy with you. Consider it a parting gift from a generous employer. He was lying, and we both knew it. The moment I signed that paper, he'd have his lawyers file provisional patents on my work and shut down any possibility of me using it elsewhere. The non-compete clause would prevent me from working in cybersecurity for 3 years, long enough for him to monetize everything I'd built and establish himself as the industry pioneer. I'd seen him do it before. 3 years ago, when David Kim had developed an innovative firewall protocol, Marcus had pulled the same move. David was now working as a IT support technician in Milwaukee, his career effectively destroyed. You can't keep what's mine, Marcus. His smile widened, revealing teeth whitened to an unnatural brightness. Watch me. You've got until 5 p.m. to clean out your desk. Security will escort you out. And Mary? He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. If you try to fight this, I'll bury you in legal fees. I've got 10 lawyers on retainer. How many do you have? The answer was none. I was a cybersecurity engineer, not a corporate shark. I'd trusted that good work would speak for itself, that innovation would be rewarded, that integrity meant something in business. I was about to learn how naive that was. That night, I sat in my converted garage in Naperville, surrounded by 6 years of real work. 3 custom-built servers hummed quietly in their climate-controlled rack. My development workstation, a beast I'd assembled myself with dual monitors and enough processing power to crack government encryption, sat beside stacks of handwritten notebooks filled with algorithms and breakthrough moments that had kept me awake for months. Everything that actually mattered was here, not in that gleaming office tower where Marcus played CEO in $1,000 suits. I was reviewing my employment Contract for the dozenth time when my phone buzzed. A text from Janet, coffee tomorrow? 7 a.m. Corner cafe on Madison. Need to talk. The next morning, Janet Rodriguez looked like she hadn't slept in days. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She'd been Marcus's executive assistant for 8 years, the invisible force that actually kept Pinnacle running while he networked at golf courses and tech conferences. He's lost his mind, she said without preamble, clutching her coffee cup like a lifeline. Yesterday, after you left, he spent 3 hours on the phone with patent attorneys. He's planning to present your encryption system to the Department of Defense next Thursday. He's already scheduled the demo. Told them he's the lead developer. I felt my blood pressure spike. The DoD contract? That's worth $40 million over 5 years. Gets worse. He's been practicing his presentation all week. I had to compile technical documentation for him because he doesn't understand the first thing about how your system actually works. Mary, he kept asking me what quantum entanglement means and why the keys can't just be longer passwords. Despite everything, I almost laughed. Marcus had an MBA from Northwestern and could charm venture capitalists out of millions, but he thought cybersecurity was just making passwords harder to guess. Janet, I need to ask you something, and you don't have to answer. You compiled those documents legally, didn't you? The ones showing my development timeline. She reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a small USB drive. Everything. Email timestamps showing you working at 3 a.m. from your home IP address. Security badge logs proving you weren't even in the building during most of your development hours. Purchase receipts for the $15,000 of equipment you bought yourself. Photos I took when I delivered contracts to your house and saw you working through your garage window. She paused, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. And the recordings. Recordings? Illinois is a one-party consent state for recording conversations. I've been documenting everything since the Saracen incident 3 years ago. Every meeting where he claimed credit for other people's work. Every conversation where he planned to steal intellectual property. Every time he laughed about outsmarting the engineers. I stared at her. Why are you helping me? You could lose your job. Hell, you could face legal consequences. Janet's laugh was bitter. Mary, I've watched this man destroy careers for 8 years. I've seen brilliant people like you pour their souls into innovations, only to watch him slap his name on patents and take all the credit. Do you know what happened to David Kim after Marcus forced him out? I nodded. He's doing IT support in Milwaukee. Wrong. He's dead. Janet's voice cracked. Suicide, 6 months after the non-compete destroyed his career. His wife called me because my number was on his phone. She wanted to know why a cybersecurity genius was working at a help desk for $12 an hour. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too warm. I had no idea. Sarah Chen was luckier, Janet continued. She moved to California, started over in a completely different field. But she lost everything she'd worked for. Her solar panel design? Marcus licensed it to 3 major manufacturers. Made $18 million in royalties. She got nothing. I never knew about David. Marcus made sure of that. But I kept records of everything. David's emails begging for references. Sarah's legal threats went nowhere because she couldn't afford to fight him. Every destroyed career, every stolen innovation. Janet pulled out her phone and showed me a folder labeled Insurance Policy. It contained hundreds of files, audio recordings, email screenshots, document photos. The Riverside Industries contract is the key, she said. Your quantum encryption system is the only thing keeping that deal alive. They're paying $12 million annually specifically for your technology. Without it, they walk. And Marcus? She shook her head. He couldn't fix a password reset, let alone maintain quantum encryption protocols. I leaned forward. What exactly are you suggesting? The system has remote administrative capabilities, right? You built in authentication keys tied to your personal credentials? I had. It was standard practice. The lead developer maintains root access for troubleshooting and updates. The keys are biometric locked to my personal devices. Then technically, the system belongs to whoever holds those keys. And if someone were to revoke that access, Janet trailed off meaningfully. The whole system would be locked down as a security precaution. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. Hypothetically speaking, of course. Janet's smile was the first genuine expression I'd seen from her in months. There's something else. Thompson and Associates has been courting Riverside for months, trying to steal the contract. If Pinnacle's security failed and couldn't be restored within 48 hours, Riverside would have legal grounds to terminate immediately and demand full refunds for the past year. Thompson and Associates. Pinnacle's biggest competitor, run by Patricia Thompson, a woman who'd built her company the right way, promoting from within and sharing credit where it was due. That would be catastrophic for Pinnacle's finances. 12 million in refunds, plus the 40 million DoD contract Marcus is depending on to keep the company afloat. Without those revenue streams. Janet shrugged. Well, the board of directors might start asking difficult questions about leadership. We sat in silence, the morning rush building around us as commuters grabbed coffee before heading to jobs where their bosses might actually appreciate their work. I never had this conversation with you, Janet said finally, standing up. But Mary? You built something revolutionary. You deserve credit for it. And if taking back what's yours happens to protect other people from going through what David Kim went through. She left the sentence hanging. Why now? Why help me instead of any of the others? Janet's expression hardened. Because you're the last one. After you, there won't be anyone left to steal from. Marcus will have consumed every innovative mind in the company. And then he'll move on to the next startup, the next group of brilliant engineers who think their work will speak for itself. She gathered her things, then paused. One more thing. The board meeting is scheduled for Friday. Marcus is planning to announce the DoD contract and propose a major expansion. If something were to happen before then, it would be particularly damaging to his credibility. After she left, I sat alone with my coffee, staring out at the Chicago skyline where Pinnacle's headquarters gleamed in the morning sun. Somewhere in that tower, Marcus was probably practicing his presentation about his quantum encryption breakthrough, preparing to claim credit for 3 years of my life's work, but what Janet didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd built more than just an encryption system. I'd built an insurance policy. Every line of code I'd written for Pinnacle contained something Marcus and his lawyers had never thought to look for, a hidden authentication protocol that could remotely audit every system I'd ever touched. If I activated it, I wouldn't just be taking back my encryption system. I'd be taking back everything. I spent the weekend in my garage, doing exactly what Janet had suggested, cataloging everything that was actually mine. The quantum encryption system I'd built had a feature Marcus and his legal team didn't know about, a hidden administrative protocol I'd embedded in the core architecture. Every piece of code I'd written for Pinnacle contained my digital signature, encrypted so deeply that removing it would require rebuilding entire systems from scratch. But more than that, I'd built something I called the nuclear option, a remote audit system that could trace every line of my code across Pinnacle's entire network. If activated, it would show exactly which systems I'd built, which algorithms came from my work, and which innovations Marcus had claimed credit for. Sunday night, I made copies of everything. Janet's USB drive. My development logs. The audio recordings of Marcus claiming credit for my work at industry conferences. Photos of the whiteboard in my garage where I'd first sketched the quantum entanglement protocols that would revolutionize cybersecurity. Monday morning, I put my plan into action. At exactly 9 a.m., I sat in my home office and initiated the audit protocol. My fingers moved across the keyboard with surgical precision as I remotely accessed every system I'd built for Pinnacle over the past 6 years. The results were staggering. 73% of Pinnacle's core security infrastructure contained my code. The firewall protocols. The client authentication systems. The data encryption modules. Even the basic network architecture relied on optimizations I'd written during late-night troubleshooting sessions. At 9:15, I executed Phase 2. Every authentication key tied to my personal credentials was simultaneously revoked across Pinnacle's entire network. The quantum encryption system immediately locked down, displaying a message I'd programmed 3 years ago: unauthorized access detected. System protected by intellectual property safeguards. Contact original developer for authentication. The other systems began failing in a cascade effect. Without my authentication protocols, Pinnacle's network security dropped to pre-2015 levels. Client data became inaccessible. The trading algorithms that processed millions in daily transactions ground to a halt. My phone started ringing at 9:18. What did you do? Marcus's voice was tight with panic, but I could hear something else underneath, the first note of real fear I'd ever heard from him. I took what's mine, Marcus. Just like you told me to. You can't do this. This is sabotage. This is intellectual property protection, I interrupted calmly. My code, my authentication keys, my systems. You want to use them? License them from me. You signed a contract. Everything you built belongs to Pinnacle. I pulled up my employment agreement on my second monitor. Actually, Marcus, I think you should read Section 4.7 more carefully. The IP clause only applies to work done using company resources. Every authentication key currently locked down was generated on my personal hardware, using my personal development environment. Check your legal team's documentation. I think you'll find Janet was very thorough. I could hear him typing frantically in the background. This is extortion. This is business. You taught me that everything has a price. My licensing fee is very reasonable, full recognition of my work, public acknowledgement of my contributions, and a licensing agreement that reflects the actual value of what I built. Go to hell. He hung up. I smiled and opened my laptop to monitor the news feeds. By 9:45, the first reports were appearing on industry blogs. Pinnacle Tech Solutions experiences major security breach. By 10:30, it was trending on LinkedIn. By noon, TechCrunch had picked up the story. At 12:15, my phone rang again. This time it was Patricia Thompson from Thompson & Associates. Mary Chen? Her voice was warm but professional. This is Patricia Thompson. I think we should talk. I'm listening. My team has been monitoring the situation at Pinnacle. From what we're seeing, it appears their entire security infrastructure has been compromised. Our mutual contact at Riverside Industries mentioned they're looking for alternative solutions. I'd never spoken to Patricia directly, but her reputation in the industry was spotless. Thompson & Associates had grown to become Pinnacle's biggest competitor by doing everything Marcus didn't, promoting from within, sharing profits with employees, and actually understanding the technology they sold. What are you proposing? Emergency consulting contract. Riverside needs their security restored immediately. Standard rate is $2,000 per hour, but given the circumstances, I think $5,000 is more appropriate. Plus a performance bonus. If you can get them operational within 24 hours. It was more money than I'd made in 3 months at Pinnacle. I'll need to retain ownership of my proprietary algorithms. Of course. We're not in the business of stealing intellectual property. The dig at Marcus was subtle but unmistakable. In the cybersecurity world, everyone knew everyone. Patricia Thompson knew exactly what Marcus had been doing to his engineers. By 2 p.m., I was sitting in Riverside Industries' Chicago office, meeting with their CTO Amanda Foster. She was a sharp woman in her 50s who'd built Riverside's technology division from the ground up. We need to understand what we're dealing with, she said, pulling up Pinnacle security reports on her wall-mounted display. Our entire trading platform is down. We're losing approximately $50,000 every hour this continues. I studied system architecture, my system architecture. The lockdown was triggered by an intellectual property protection protocol. Someone tried to access systems without proper authorization. Can you fix it? I can restore your access within 4 hours. But we need to talk about the long-term solution. Pinnacle's security infrastructure is compromised. If you want real protection, you need someone who actually understands the technology. Amanda leaned forward. What are you suggesting? Full system migration to Thompson & Associates. I'll personally oversee the transition and provide ongoing support. Your data will be more secure, your costs will be lower, and you'll be working with people who actually built the systems they're selling. The relief on her face was immediate. How soon can we start? By 5 p.m., I had restored Riverside's access and signed a consulting agreement with Thompson & Associates. By 6 p.m., Riverside had terminated their contract with Pinnacle and signed with Thompson. Marcus called me at 7:30 that evening. The board is calling an emergency meeting, he said, his voice hollow. Riverside dropped us. The DoD postponed the presentation pending an investigation into our claims. Our stock is down 40%. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Because I think you planned this whole thing. I was sitting in my garage, looking at the servers and equipment that had always been mine, surrounded by the real work I'd been doing for years while he took credit and cashed checks. Marcus, I told you from the beginning, you can't keep what's mine. I just took it back. The other clients are spooked. Morrison Industries wants a technical audit before they renew. Sterling Dynamics is asking for meetings with the actual engineers, not just executives. For the first time in 6 years, Marcus was being forced to confront the reality that he'd built his entire company on other people's work. Without engineers to steal from, without innovations to claim as his own, he was just another MBA with a nice suit and no actual skills. You've destroyed everything, he said. No, Marcus. I've revealed everything. The company you built was never real. It was just a shell around other people's brilliance. When those people finally took back what belonged to them, there was nothing left because there was never anything there to begin with. The line went quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. What do you want? Money? Stock options? Your job back? Recognition, I said simply. Public acknowledgement of what I built. And an apology to David Kim's family. David Kim? What does he have to do with this? Everything, Marcus. This is for him. For Sarah Chen. For every engineer whose work you stole and whose career you destroyed. This is what happens when you finally pick on someone who kept receipts. 3 days later, the Chicago Tribune ran a front-page story about Pinnacle Tech Solutions' collapse. The article detailed Marcus's pattern of stealing intellectual property from his employees, complete with quotes from Janet's recordings and documentation from a dozen former engineers who'd finally found the courage to speak out. The Department of Defense opened a criminal investigation into Pinnacle's fraudulent claims. The SEC launched an inquiry into whether Marcus had misrepresented the company's intellectual property assets to investors. By the end of the week, Pinnacle's board had voted Marcus out as CEO and appointed an interim leadership team to manage the company's liquidation. 6 months later, I was sitting in the conference room of Thompson and Associates' new Chicago office, a space with no marble floors, no gold fixtures, just clean lines and natural light streaming through windows that overlooked Lake Michigan. Quantum Shield Security is officially operational, Patricia Thompson announced to the assembled team. She'd offered me a partnership in the new venture, specializing in next-generation cybersecurity for companies that valued actual innovation over stolen ideas. Janet Rodriguez sat at my right hand as our chief operating officer. She'd brought with her a dozen other Pinnacle refugees, engineers and analysts who'd finally found a place where their work would be valued and credited. Sarah Chen had joined us as lead engineer for our renewable energy security division. She was working on revolutionary new protocols for protecting smart grid infrastructure, and this time, her name would be on every patent. Our first major client was Riverside Industries. Our second was the Department of Defense, who'd been impressed by our transparent development process and verifiable intellectual property. Amanda Foster had become one of our biggest advocates, referring 3 more Fortune 500 companies within our first quarter. We've got 17 employees now, Patricia continued, and more resumes coming in every day. Apparently, word is spreading that we actually pay people for their innovations instead of stealing them. There was a photo on my desk, not of my mother this time, but of David Kim. Janet had given it to me, taken at a company holiday party 3 years ago. He was smiling, holding up a tablet displaying his firewall protocol, proud of work that Marcus would claim credit for 6 months later. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad about how Pinnacle ended. They say I was reckless to destroy a company that employed 200 people. They say I should have found a way to work within the system instead of burning it down, but those people don't understand what it's like to watch your life's work get stolen, to see your name erased from innovations you poured your soul into, to watch brilliant people get destroyed because they trusted that good work would be rewarded. Marcus Caldwell now works as a regional sales manager for a mid-tier software company in Detroit. He's not allowed to use CEO or founder in his LinkedIn profile anymore, part of the legal settlement from the class action lawsuit filed by Pinnacle's former employees. The other executives who enabled him haven't fared much better. The board members who rubber-stamped his intellectual property theft now face personal liability in the ongoing civil suits. Several have declared bankruptcy, but the engineers, the people who actually built the innovations Marcus stole, most of them have landed on their feet. Thompson and Associates hired 8 former Pinnacle employees. Google recruited 3 others. Microsoft offered consulting contracts to 4 more. It turns out that when you actually build things instead of just claiming credit for them, people notice. Real talent doesn't stay hidden forever. The lesson isn't about revenge, though revenge was certainly part of it. The lesson is about knowing your worth and protecting what you've built. In a world where people will try to steal your work and call it theirs, sometimes the only way to prove ownership is to take it back, and sometimes, when you pull one thread, the whole tapestry unravels. Marcus learned that his company was just a house of cards built on other people's foundations. When those people finally reclaimed what belonged to them, there was nothing left to hold the structure together. We've hired 6 more engineers in the past month, all women, all brilliant, all refugees from companies where their work was undervalued or stolen outright. One of them told me during her interview that she'd never seen a tech company where the actual builders got to make the decisions. I smiled and handed her an offer letter. Last week, we landed our biggest contract yet, a 5-year, $60 million deal with the Department of Energy to secure the national power grid using quantum encryption protocols. My protocols. My innovations. My name on the patents. Marcus built his empire by stealing other people's work and calling it his own. I destroyed it by taking back what was always mine. The difference is simple. He was a thief who got caught. I was the owner who came home. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.